Hello viewers, welcome to Gibbs TV. This session of the video, the lecture video, is the second part of the theoretical framework discussion, and is specifically going to look at how to structure theoretical framework session in your research project. Let's recall some of the definitions that we discussed in the previous videos. We realized that from the previous video, a theoretical framework is a blueprint and is also serve as the foundational review of existing theory that serve as a roadmap for developing the argument you will use in the research study. We also observe that in a theoretical framework, you have to explain the existing theories that support your research, and also showing that your study or the dissertation or the thesis is also relevant and grounded in theory or some established ideas. Note that the theoretical framework can sometimes be integrated into a literature review, but it can also be included as its own chapter or section in your dissertation. It depends on the model that your institution is following. So for example, if your institution or department is following 5-chapter model for a dissertation or thesis, there's a likelihood that you may combine the theoretical framework and the literature review as one chapter. But within the chapter, you must have a section for the framework and a section for the literature review. Remember that the literature review and the framework are not the same, but they are connected. All right. As a rule of thumb, if your research involves dealing with a lot of complex theories, it's a good idea to include a separate theoretical framework chapter. So if you are, maybe the study requires a lot of theories, complex theories, make sure you have a separate chapter for the theoretical framework. But those who are doing 6-chapter models, it is very easy because definitely you have a separate chapter for the theoretical framework and a separate chapter for the literature review. Note that there are no fixed rules for structuring your theoretical framework, but it is a best practice to double check with the department or institution or maybe your advisor to make sure if they have a guidelines for formatting your chapter, okay? Very important. The most important thing is to create a clear and logical structure for this particular session. So you see that throughout the research process, the purpose, it needs clarity. The research question needs clarity. The title needs clarity. The problem needs clarity. And even the theoretical framework needs clarity. So as you have to also bring clarity to your literature review. When we get to that session, I will explain that to you. Let's look at some of the components of theoretical framework, specifically some best practices that scholars, researchers, and institutions have followed to bring clarity and also develop a logical structure for the framework. Some of the best practices for creating clear and logical structure for theoretical framework chapter in a thesis or dissertation has included some of these concepts. First, you must introduce the chapter. So you must have introduction session. Second, you must also discuss the framework. Okay, the framework that you are using for the entire study, you must discuss the different dimensions of the framework. Then you must also discuss some of the major concepts that form the framework. Because originally, okay, theories are made up of concepts. So all the concepts, the tenets that are associated with the framework, you need to explain all. Then you need to also explain the importance of the framework to the study, the current study, and to the field of study, your discipline. For example, if it's public policy or economics or management, or maybe the sciences, make sure that you explain to readers. Discussion of the empirical studies is also very important at this stage. You need to discuss some of the studies, already existing studies, scholars that have utilized the framework in the field. It's very important because this part will help to justify, bring validity and reliability to your discussion. We must also tell readers how the theoretical framework informs the selection of the study variable. This is very important, okay, because the framework informs the design, the research design. It also informs the selection of the variable, the conceptual framework, and the modeling. So you see that it is ideally the foundation, the blueprint that drives the entire study. But at this stage, you need to tell how it is connected to the variables, because at the end of the day, after your analysis, you have to connect your results to that of the framework, see whether it's consistent or it is contradicting the theory. So you need to tell us how the framework concept relates to the study variables. You must also justify the theoretical framework as the best fit for this study. Then lastly, you look at the summary of the chapter. With the introduction of the framework, you are expected to introduce the chapter, no doubt. Tell readers about what the chapter entails and what they should expect in the composition of the entire chapter. Then you have to also briefly tell readers about the framework that you are using. Because if you briefly introduce the framework, then it will help the next discussion to come and stay. So the next discussion will be the discussion of the entire framework, the framework that you just introduced. So in this session, you talk about the different dimensions of the framework. You talk about the rationale of the framework, you talk about the proponent, those who created the framework, some of the current arguments about the framework, and how the framework fits into the study in terms of the rationale and its connection with the study problem. Very important. So, for example, in the Thomason customer satisfaction model and that of the proceed model, you need to talk about all the different dimensions of any of those models that you select. All right. Then the next is to discuss the major concepts or the tenets associated with the theoretical framework. Since theories are made up of concepts, you need to talk about all the various concepts that connects to the framework. Because if you look at this particular proceed model, all these different concepts are interacting to influence the outcome or the dependent variable, okay, or the criterion variable. In this particular scenario, the dependent variable here is the quality of life or the health outcome, okay? But the indicator for that health outcome for this particular is the quality of life. So all these factors, the health programs, the ecological and educational assessment, the epidemiological assessment, all these concept or indicators are interacting to influence health outcome or the quality of life. In the same way for that of the Thomason customer satisfaction model, you observe that the value proposition, the word of mouth, personal needs, past experiences, marketing and public relations, needs and expectations, experiences, weekly achievement, they are interacting, okay? Work together to influence customer satisfaction. So we need to explain all these concepts, how they relate to the dependent variable that we explain in the study. The next, you have to explain to readers the importance of the theoretical framework to the study and the field of study. Tell us how those frameworks, okay, are going to help you solve the research question. And, tell us the importance of it, and even to the field of study. Very important. Then the next, you need to discuss the various phases of scholars that have utilized the framework in the field of study. Okay, and this particular session will bring a lot of reliability and justification to the framework that you are selecting for the study. You need to also tell readers how the theoretical framework informed the selection of the study variable. I think I already told you that there's a video on this, so watch out for that. So the next, you need to look at the justification of the theoretical framework as the best fit for this study. You need to justify by explaining to readers, why you are not using framework A, but we're using framework B. Meanwhile, they're all saying the same thing. Okay? Yes, so you need to tell readers, the justification for your inclusion and exclusion of some of the theories. All right. And the last session, you need to talk about the summary of the chapter. You need to summarize for readers to know and understand your discussion. If you're able to do all these, bring in all these 6, 7, 8 concepts into your discussion, there's a likelihood that you will bring clarity and logical structure to your chapter. In summary, toward this end, it is important to make sure that the information your theoretical framework is bringing is clear for your reader. Okay? Clarity is key to this particular chapter. It doesn't have a specific structure or maybe a one-size-fits-all model. However, you have to make sure that whatever you are bringing, there's clarity, and it's also helping you build an argument for the study. Also, try as much as possible to make sure to ask a friend or colleague, okay, or a good reviewer to review the session for you, so that you'll be certain that you are submitting a good stuff for your advisor to grade or maybe to assess you. Very important. As you know, other parts of your research paper or thesis or dissertation, make sure to properly cite your sources to avoid plagiarism. As a good advice, I always tell readers, sometimes you can use some of these softwares to gather or also assemble your references. Some of them include the Mendeley. Those who are familiar with Mendeley, you can use to organize your references. Thank you. I will see you all in the next videos. Thank you very much.